Hey guys, it's AvAngel, welcome back to the channel, and we're going on a little flight today from one of my homes of flying in the sim. This is Campbell Island in British Columbia, and it's technically Denny Island, but Campbell Airport, Campbell Island, Bella Bella. This place is where I did so much of my flying, back in the FSX days, back in the old times when I wasn't doing YouTube, and I was just a flight simmer, like all of you, and this place became my little home because I had the Orbex Pacific Fjords add-on, and it was gorgeous. And we're going to go outside for a second. I'm going to fly around as I get rid of the checklist screen there, because whilst it's nothing special and I'm throwing things across my office, this little airport here in British Columbia, and I'd love there to be a good scenery for this actually, because it's nothing special. It's not an important airfield or town, but this place became my home. Like, we all have a flight sim home somewhere, and in my case, this was it. That's the town down there on the coast in the little harbour. We'll fly over it on the way out. And there's the other airport across there, Denny Island, which you can just see top centre there. We'll fly past that. But this place became my home. This was where I did all my operating out of. I had my little flight sim pretend company. I did a livery for Addons Cessna 206 with, Campbell Aviation. And I do little bush flights out of this place, going inland and flying supplies and people. And I loved it. It was the best thing in the world. Now, I thought we'll come back here so I can show it to you guys and share it with you guys. And we're taking out Shrike Simulations Twin Comanche. Mostly because I wanted a proper excuse to fly this thing and really get a feel for it. I reviewed it, obviously, but I really want to give it a good kick and see how it actually takes. So, we're going to do just that today. Those are circuit breakers. Those are all in. Confirm. They don't click, obviously, but they're all in, so that's good. We've checked that. Let me move my throttles out of the way here. Move all those up. Wonderful. And make sure it's good. Oh yeah, there's a dog here. Don't mind the dog. This is Gotfriend's best friend add-on, which lets you have a dog as your co-pilot. It's free. I'll link it in the description. But you can have a dog as your co-pilot, which is kick-ass. And I'm totally not having a person anymore as my co-pilot, because I can have a dog. Now make a cat, please. I would love to have a cat as my co-pilot. That'd be great. Let's get ourselves underway here, shall we? Get that all started up and ready to rock and roll. Let's remove this for a second whilst we can see everything. And check our gear lever is set as down. It is. Gears down and locked, so mags to on to both. That is all good to go there. Fuel pumps are on for left and right. Cowl flaps will have half open for start and takeoff. Wonderful. Okay. People asked actually in the last video about the fuel tanks and how you've only got left and right. Yeah, you can't select the tip tanks. Why is that? Well, they feed into the mains. So they will feed and retop off the main tanks. That's how that works. So you'll see here you can check the levels on your aux gate tanks, but it's feeding to the mains. So that's how that actually works. Right. Let's get this thing going, shall we? So let's start left. I always have this trouble, don't I? And I never seem to remember why. Masters are on, everything else is on there. I'm an idiot. I'm an absolute idiot. Oh no, you can select aux. Sorry, I was completely incorrect about this, which isn't unusual. I'm often quite incorrect about things. There's another aircraft that's like this. I don't remember which one it was, but it's another aircraft that has tip tanks. Well, you can't do that. It turns out you need fuel to start the engine. Who knew? There we go. Throttle that back for a second. Okay. Whilst we wait for everything to get us ready to rock and roll. Temps are very low there. Fuel pressure's good, oil pressure's good. Oil temps in the just about the green. Let it warm up for a second. Make sure these are on the correct screen here for us to get out of here. And fuel flow is low, that's fine. Fuel is good. Levels are good. Let's get ourselves moving, shall we? Switch my head on. Alright, Let's get this thing moving. We'll just spin up our left and get it turned around. I really want to like this plane, so I really want to give it a good kicking and see how it fares in terms of flying it and taking it somewhere. We're heading up to AvAngel's lookout today, my personal airport. Yes, I have a personal airport. It's wonderful. And I'll get myself going and we'll fly up past Bella. Or Bella Cooler, sorry. Lots of Bellas today. It's like an Italian Beauty and the Beast convention. So we've got one notch of flaps. Turn it onto the runway here and we'll throttle up nicely. And we'll let this thing rip. Great visibility forward on this aircraft. You have so much view with the engines out in the wings, of course. They're very flat engines, which makes life nice and convenient. These are back here. And off the runway. A lot of back pressure there. Let's try and alleviate some of this with some trim. Gear up. Flaps coming up. Pull that manifold back to 25. And we'll pull these back to 25 squared whilst we're climbing. And we're rolling. Airspeed, let's drop the nose a little bit, keep it positive as we roll round. But beautiful part of the world here. There's so much just water and islands and little inlets. It always seemed like a really beautiful place to me because it's so remote, yet there's so much water, there was so much untouched land here with these islands that were completely, you know, untouched by human civilization. It was gorgeous. And of course, this is one of the prettier parts of the world because Orbex had their Pacific Fjords out for this area, which made it absolutely stunning, and I loved it so much. So we'll see Campbell Island and the town down there. There we go, let's just nudge this forward. Let's mute my headphone or fix that position for a second. We'll pop outside, take a little look as we go past. There's a little town. It's just idyllic. You've got a little harbour, a little town. It's quite pretty. I just fell in love with this spot. It just felt like mine in the sim world, you know? And over here is Denny Island, which we're turning on past anyway because it's on course for us. But this one, it's just got a parking area. It's got this one runway, which we'll do a little low pass on it, just as I knock everything off my desk today. It's great. I just love throwing things around. It makes me feel better. No, it doesn't really, but I'm a klutz, so you're used to that by now. Right, we're off course slightly. We'll turn on course in a moment. Let's pull the power back a lot. We're descending. We want to make sure we're still losing airspeed. We don't overspeed the aircraft here. We should be good for now. A little fishing harbour down there. But it was such a cool approach to this airport because it was just straight in here. And you could just pop straight down the runway over the ridgeline here. This big open cleared area in front of the threshold. It made for quite an interesting little spot. Okay, I'll just throttle forward enough that it stops whining at me. Which is fine. See this big cleared area, it's the same in FSX and the Orbex one, so in real life it must be relatively cleared. I think they had bigger stuff coming in here. For what, I'm not sure, but it's a pretty decent sized runway. Little parking area to the right there. A decently sized one, actually. Let's get out of here, shall we? Up, up and away. I will say the Shrike Twin Comanche does fly very well. It feels heavy, which for a twin like this it is. They're not a light sporty twin, it's a much older twin. So it feels bulky, it feels heavy, and I love the panel, I will say. The panel layout's great. We've got the modern, you know, mod cons of GPS there. But it's a very old feeling plane. You know, you don't feel like you're in a modern aircraft. It feels like an older Comanche that's been upgraded with some equipment, because obviously you've upgraded the stack there, but otherwise it's relatively stock on its instruments, and they're a cool plane. I love flying aircraft like this because to me they feel much more accurate to real life. You see a lot more aircraft like this, especially older models, that have had a couple of upgrades. Maybe it's, you know, replacing the attitude indicator with maybe a Garmin G5, or they've put in a GPS or a new stack of modern radios, and that tends to give you this feeling of almost jumping between time zones, because you've got a lot of this old school instrumentation and panel layout, but you've also got the mod cons and conveniences, so it always feels quite nice. Alright, let's pull the RPM back to 24 there. What are my temps looking like? Okay, let's close those off for now. Pumps are off. Wonderful. Okay, we're good to go. Now, am I incorrect in assuming? Nope, I am incorrect in assuming, so don't worry about it. There we go. So we're heading across the mountains here before we drop in, although we can just take a right here and just drop around the edge of this instead, which will do us just fine. It's 24 square. I want to go fast. I'm not too worried about fuel economy today. Should be just fine. But it's a very pretty looking aircraft. That's one of the things I love about the Comanche, the Twin Comanche. And we're going to get very familiar with this style of body and cockpit, of course, with A2As coming along. But it's a pretty looking twin, isn't it? It has that timeless look to it. Good lines, good appearance. And I will say Shrike's aircraft, being a cheapie, being a budget entry, has good sounds. It definitely sounds like a good plane. And graphically it's nice. Like, I could live with this. Has it got all the amazing mod cons of a full-on Blackbird model? No. But it's already on a par, technically, with Coronado stuff overall. Yeah, some candy features would be lovely, but it doesn't need them, right? I don't think it needs it. But no, I love the old school layouts where there was no real standardization to the panels, and you'll see it here. Notice how we've got our artificial horizon there, the attitude indicator, vertical speed's down here, turn slips here, altitude's all the way over here, airspeed's over there. You know, planes were flown differently back in the day, and there was no standard real flow to how you flew a plane. I love the fact the storm window actually opens and gives you sound. A number of aircraft have come out recently where the storm window won't open when you're in the air, which makes no sense because they're for that. Even Windows on Coronado's 182 RG, which is fantastic, by the way. I love that one. That is probably their best they've released to date. The windows are open in flight, which are designed to do so. The doors shouldn't really open very well, but hey, there you go. There's the brakes. Okay. So we'll slip through here, and we'll regain our track somewhere near Bella Coola, one of my test locations I use. It's long been a favourite part of the world to me, just because it's so pretty. You get this beautiful remote feeling. You'll see little lakes in the middle of untouched wilderness where no one's been, or you can only reach by hiking. And I find that fascinating and exciting. I think it's gorgeous. I think it's breathtaking landscape. The mountains, the rock, the valleys, the water. It's just pure. It's the earth as it was. And you'll see these little patches and influences of humanity in places. It's almost as though in these parts of the world, people live with the environment, not on top of it. But you go down to any major city or any busier part of the world, humanity lives on top of the environment. We live on top of it. We don't live in it. Up here in the fjords, you live in it. There's no two ways about it. Go to the left here. And that's another thing I really enjoy, is there's no real, you know, there's no necessarily straight line flying. Sure, you can go to altitude and just bomb it in a straight line, but it's one of the beautiful things about flying in the mountains and in this kind of terrain is you can snake your way through valleys and passes and discover beautiful sights, all the while making the most efficient journey you can. And this is a pretty potent little twin. It's got some real legs to it. Temperatures all look fine. I know there's no systems in here to model, but all temps are great. That's terrain. Let's pull up slightly. I do find it's very heavy on the pitch. I will say, even though it is a what we call a cheap model, it's marketed as being entry level, you know, budget. The flight model is still built with care. It feels distinctly different to most things I've flown in the sim. It feels distinctly like this. Is it accurate to a Twin Comanche? I don't know. I can't tell you, but I will say it does not feel like a 182. It does not feel like Coronado's Seneca. It doesn't feel like other twins I have, which I really respect. It doesn't feel like the 310 either. Which, by the way, if you don't know, has got an update from Milviz. If you've got it in the marketplace, or Blackbird, sorry. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but for everybody else, you can get your update, which does actually modify its flight behavior in terms of landing and drag and lift. So you won't need as much throttle to drag it in on landing now. But they have been updating that one. Right, so we fly along here. Bella Coola will be directly ahead of us at the end of the fjord, and then we'll be all good. Let's just trim this thing out a little bit here for us. Keep it nice and straight level. We'll just go down the valley and round the corner, bring it in the way I know to Angel's Lookout, and we'll be just fine. And it trims out beautifully. Let me take my feet off the pedals. I have this habit of leaving my feet on the rudder pedals, which I don't do in real life, but I do for some reason in the sim. And girl problem, I had a pedicure recently, so my feet are sensitive. And my pedals are sharp, and I'm not wearing shoes. And as you can see right now, I'm being a pedant and chasing my trim wheel, which is a bad habit, but it's one I have. There we go, that's nice. And we'll just nudge the throttle slightly to counter that. And we'll be just fine. See, when you get an aircraft properly trimmed out, you can steer with a finger. Even one that flies quite heavily and rolls quite heavily like this one. Like, I've just got a finger and a thumb at the bottom of my yoke, and I'm just gently manipulating the yoke just to bring it on course. Just slight corrections. I've got one finger on my trim wheel. Although in this aircraft our trim is, I believe, up there. So yeah, that's the trim handle. Those are fun. You don't see many old pilots with these because the arms over their heads. Yeah, they love that. We're expecting to get A2A's Comanche very soon, either this month or next, so I'm excited for that. Should be very good. I'm looking forward to the first MSFS A2A aircraft. I hope more follow. I hope we get some real good ones. I'd love to see the B-17. I would die for the B-17. Oh god, I would love it. Please do. Give me that B-17. I know we probably won't, but that'd be amazing. That'd be the piece de resistance. Or even this Stratoliner, or Stratocruiser, the 377. I could vibe with that now. I could get on board. Especially with the flight crew and the air crew and the B-17. Those were a huge part of A2A for me. The passengers and the audible stuff that you got from those experiences. Same with even the twin-seaters, of course. You had the pilot options and their sensitivity or how jumpy they were. It was always fun scaring the crap out of Heidi in the Cub. I took great pleasure in that. But there was also a time where you had like a fixed pilot model in FSX. So, being a lady pilot, I'd often fly from the front seat and just put myself above Heidi's body. Just so I could pretend that FSX wasn't basically assuming every pilot had a PP. And that occasionally women could fly. It used to be rare back then, but now almost all planes allow you to pick your pilot in the menu, which is a great thing. Because, you know, you get to pick the colour of your pilot, the sex of the pilot, and suddenly you can have a pilot that feels like you. Which I think even in a sim game like this, where you're mostly in first person looking out the window, is a huge part of it, because guess what? Pilots are as diverse as the number of aeroplanes in the sky. These fjords are honestly beautiful. Look at this landscape here. The rocky, blasted, wind-worn cliffs. The mountainside that's as old as time. I mean, look at this. This is as old as time. Stunning. Untouched by human hands. The beautiful big fjords. Just the sheer drops. And fjords like this are very deep. The angles you're seeing on the terrain is what you're going to see going down here, so it drops at deep pretty quickly. A couple of 100 meters in places. But it's just stunning. You feel so alone out here. I've always preferred to fly down in these valleys and fjords than I have up above them. Sure, you can do that, and if you've got a faster aircraft it makes sense, but nothing feels quite as good as being surrounded and embraced by the terrain in these parts of the world. You really get a beautiful visceral experience. I think often we don't fly enough for pleasure. Like, people will go A to B from this place to this place specifically to get there, but just enjoying the landscape, the terrain, it's underrated. Even when they fuck it up like that. I shouldn't swear. YouTube hates me for doing that. But it is very pretty. Yeah, unfortunately some of these more remote parts of the world do suffer occasionally from satellite passes. Which is unfortunate, but then you find the truly beautiful spots and it's worth it. It's all worth it. I remember in the Orbex version of this we'd have a dock and place to tie up seaplanes just past this headland up ahead. And then you had Bellacoola itself. One of the few add-on airports I had in FSX, because back in those days I found the Orbex airports were a huge performance hog. In FSX and P3D they were a massive performance hog on the sim. And for a sim that really didn't like working on modern multi-core computers, it was quite frustrating, really. Whereas now, you don't even notice the impact of them. I wish we could see more of their classics. You know, the ones out in Washington and PNW. Of course, we had the old farm, and a couple of the made-up ones out in the center of Washington. There were some gorgeous ones out there. I really miss them. Even some of the more posh, you know, Washington rich people kind of live in airports. They were still very pretty. I'm going to go to the website on my phone whilst we fly here and find these ones. I'm going to turn my head off so you aren't basically worrying about seeing me look around. Orbex. Why don't we do it live? Let's have a look here. Orbex. Products. No, not MSFS. Alright, wants me to go through MSFS first. FSX P3D, North America. Let's rate our Orbex airport, shall we? So, of course, of the different regions, gotta say, Northern California, Northern Rockies, and Pacific Fjords are my favourite. PNW, a little bit after that. Southern Alaska was amazing. Loved that one. SoCal didn't really fly as much. Most of us flying in some of these areas just murdered your performance. So we had Verona Municipal. That was a great little one. Very kind of ramshackle, but a small GA one. Never really used Jefferson County. Siku was great on the peninsula. Great little airport. Darrington Municipal. Fantastic. A legendary one. Fall City. A stunner. Plum Island and Minuteman never used. Vashon Island, a great little one, a little kind of flying estate. Swanson I never used, but it's another flying kind of place. Diamond Point was a great one. It was a very rich area. It was the kind of place where lawyers and bankers would keep their little GA planes for their weekend getaways. Concrete Municipal, never really liked it, but there you go. Boulder City I never had. Bonners Ferry I never had. Ana Cortez was a great one. Creswell was okay. Starks Twin Oaks was awesome. Never used Westwind. Campbell River Water Aerodrome was phenomenal. Air Ride was great in Canada. So was Parry Sound. Bellacoola is a stunner. Same as the one we have now in MSFS. The big ones I didn't really care about, because who cares about big ones. Squamish was wonderful. Can you see I'm biased to smaller airports? Stewart in BC, which came as a stock airport in MSFS. That's where I did my first reviews. Catalina, yeah, I can take it or leave it. Did rather enjoy Skagit Regional, of course. Bozeman Yellowstone. Oh, I do need that one. Oh, that's not in this one yet, is it? Kilo Bravo Zulu November. Bozeman is unfortunately not in MSFS yet. So we're about to get past Bella Coola here in a moment, and we'll be right there, so should be no time at all. Merrill C. Magersfield, we got that one back. Cushman Meadows, that was a fake one, but it was a great one because you had the beautiful little airport onto the lake, and at the end of the lake you also had a little bush strip where you could land, and I kid you not, across a bridge. Yeah, there was a creek running halfway down the runway, and there's a little wooden bridge over the creek that you would roll out over. It was fantastic. Murray Field was good, Northern California one. I've got a freeway scenery for that one now. Friday Harbour, you know we love Friday Harbour, right? Roanville. Didn't use Glacier Point very much, and Half Moon Bay was wonderful. So, plenty of those fantastic little strips they made. But, we should be getting sight of the end of the fjord in here in a moment, and Bella Coola. Then it's a straight shot up the valley towards Angel Point. This thing is flying beautifully. I'm really enjoying this, and it's not slow. We're doing 165 knots right now. Visibility is phenomenal. You can see so much from this aircraft. The sounds are not generic, they're interesting and rich. It feels very tonal aircraft. But more importantly, it's not fighting me. A lot of aircraft in this sim will fight you really hard. And this isn't, yeah, there's no autopilot, but you don't mind. Because once you get this thing trimmed out, it just goes. You need to keep an eye on how it's heading. But otherwise, you're okay. Just a finger and thumb, keep watch out the window, keep track of where you're going, and you're good to go. No problems. Switch that back on there. Temps and quantities looking good. We are good. Just pull back a little bit past lean. And we should be wonderful there. And we'll come around this headland right towards where Bella Coola is. Which we're just a little bit up the river. Loved this when they brought this one out. It was right in my flying area, which I really enjoyed. I actually hated flying a lot of the Washington ones in the PNW because Seattle, Vancouver, and Portland made the old Vancouver Triangle, which was a nightmare. Flight Sim's performance in that region was awful at times. This really has become reminiscing on the old days, hasn't it? All the way from me talking about Campbell Island and my little pretend days flying people out into the wilderness to go hiking and hunting, and my little fictional airline and my little 206 with a livery on it. That was my almost my Flight Sim origin story. Look at this stuff. It's gorgeous. Look at those rocks and the striation there. There's something to be said for flying below the top of the terrain. You get a very different perspective when you're not just flying above the landscape. And there's... oh, there is the little harbour. It's... okay, so it's 3D kind of textured down there a little bit. Oh, so it's just flat. It's just MSFS scenery. But in the Orbex one, it was actually three-dimensional, and it was great, and you could taxi up to little piers in the Beaver. This is back when I discovered the ultimate way to have a great Beaver in Flight Sim, which was to add the stock Beaver cockpit to the old Aerosoft Beaver exterior. This is before we got the Milviz one, right? Before we got the Milviz one, I stuck the VC model from the stock one into the Aerosoft, which meant if you open the doors, you could see floats even though they had wheels, but it didn't matter, you didn't look out there, you're fine. But you got a not terrible looking cockpit in a wheeled Beaver, as well as the float, which was nice. Also, you have an amphibian as well. Alright, Bella Coola is just here. We'll see it as we come around the bend. There she is, up ahead. It's down the valley, take a right, and we'll be at Angel's Lookout. So we'll need to climb up and get some altitude, but we should be good. You know what, we should probably climb up and get altitude, because I'm going to have to do that anyway. Because we're at 5,000 feet for Angel's Lookout, and I am not at 5,000 feet, I'm at about 1,000, so I will need altitude. So we'll climb here. We're going to aim to go relatively straight, in fact. So we'll cut to the right of the mountain, just ahead of it, left of the mountain ahead of us, and right of the peak in the distance. And we should be good. Try and climb and maintain some good airspeed at the same time. We've got some decent power in this aircraft, so we should be okay. Shouldn't cause us any major drama. And we'll be out of trouble in no time whatsoever. This is a really pretty spot, I have to say. The landscape looks great. All the rock there and the fir trees. And you get these sheer rock faces here where you've just got sheer slope with the occasional tree clinging to it. Like it's hoping just to hang around. And these big jagged overhangs. Look at valleys like that. Look at valleys like that one there. And tell me that doesn't feel primal to you. Tell me that doesn't feel like part of our history of our planet. How can you fly in areas like that and not feel very much part of the world? See, humanity's down in the valley there. You got a little bit of humanity just down in the valley. The airport, some houses, there's a town down by the outlet, the inlet. Otherwise, it's just wild nature as the Earth pulls away up into the sky. Okay, so we're still climbing pretty well. We've got about 500 to 600 feet a minute. We're going to try and eke a little bit more out of it whilst we've still got the airspeed for it. And try and get us up to altitude in time. The closer we get, that's amusing. Little house stuffed on a mountainside. Alright, let's watch the terrain. We're going to be a little silly otherwise. We should be fine. So let it climb up here. We'll be well clear of this ridge, but I'm trying to get to the right of this peak up ahead. So I cut this as tight as I can so I'm not having to waste time. We're doing good right now. 3,500. Trees ain't no thing. If you ain't got some furs in your landing gear, you ready flying? But yeah, we'll be able to get to the right of this peak up ahead and be no problem whatsoever. Look at this. It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Right, we'll set this angle so we're basically rejoining our flight path to Alpha Victor Alpha 1. I feel very arrogant flying to my own airport. Little nose up trim, keep her in practice here. Keep the nose where I want it to be. Might swing to the left a little bit just for a slightly lower grade to clear this peak and this ridgeline. But we've still got plenty of airspeed. This has got a lot of grunt. It's handling the climb in these conditions really, really well. Obviously we're not at super high altitude yet. We're only at 4,300 at the moment, so still plenty of power, pretty close to sea level, so she's managing this just fine. We want to think about a little bit of leaning as we get a little bit further up. You get to the high pastures up here and can see some of this beautiful untouched land. The high pastures and meadows up in the mountains where the air's crisp and cool. You got snow just up the hill at the mountain tops there. We're aiming for this ridgeline ahead of us here. This should basically have us conjoin at the final destination, but I'm aiming for the center here of this pass between the two peaks. That should give us our best, easiest option to get through this without any real trouble. We're past 5,000 feet, so we're above my airport's altitude, but obviously we need to go up, otherwise the terrain will make us go explode. And we don't want to go explode, that would be bad for everybody. There we go. Look at that. That is gorgeous. Big snowy mountains. There's rock and snow and the Skrike coming down. That little valley down there. That little pasture, meadow. Untouched. Oh, okay. Bit more power here. Just to get us over the last lip of this. Before I get myself in trouble. Because we're approaching trouble territory. Alright. Let's try and maintain this climb rate. Glaciers up there on our right. Now we're getting some really cool terrain. Oh, I'm going to have to cross this crap ahead of me. Oh, goody. Let's keep that climb going. We're going to have to dump some serious altitude once we get there. I should have gone round. This is why you go round a lot in mountains. Because you don't have to climb quite as hard. Look out here. Look at this. Look at this world. Look at that blue, beautiful lake up there. Glaciers up in the mountains feeding down. It is stunning. Oh, we're still getting plenty of airspeed here. We're going good. Okay, things looking good. Lean by sound, I guess, in a moment. Oh, we're still climbing quite positively here. We're still pulling out 1,000 feet a minute. This thing's grunting hard. I love it. We're at 7,500 feet and she's still grunting on the way up. This is quite a grabby aircraft. It's taking what I'm asking from it and really doing a good job of it. I mean, I'm maxed out on throttle. My RPM's quite high. I need to back that off in a minute, but we're getting 20 inches in a manifold out of this thing at 7,500, nearly 8,000 feet, which is great. And she's still got speed. Considering we're climbing at 1,000 feet a minute still, and it's managing this, so let's get the nose down here. Leave throttles maxed. We'll pull the RPM back though. Give the engines a rest. Settle out here. Okay, wonderful. We're on our final run in here, 10 miles out. So, roll it to the right. We'll come across this ridge and we'll start to begin our descent. Because we have to drop 3,000 feet here to get to the airport. We've got about 2,000 feet of dirt up there, so we should be just fine. But it's kind of a tabletop. It's up in a hanging valley, so it makes life a little interesting for you. I'd almost say this feels like its performance better than 310 to an extent. It certainly has a bit more out climb grunt. Although I never have gotten this to 14,000 yet like I did with that. I think I got to 15,000 when I was in the Andes with the 310, so that's probably a lot gruntier. Okay, rolling on course. There's my valley across there, straight up our nose. So we'll start our descent here. Pull the throttle back a little bit, come across this ridge line and we should be ready to line up. Bring her on in. A little nose down trim. Just to settle into the idea of descending. Problem is, as we pick up speed from descending, we need to put more trim in as it will try to pick the nose up again. Welcome to the Bernoulli principle. Plenty of altitude even with this cloud. A stunning place. I'd love to know how they built Angel's Lookout, because I don't know how you got all those materials up there unless we flew them up there. And how we got them in, it must have been helicopters that brought it in. I can just imagine an army of Chinooks flying in building supplies and materials and clearing a runway to bring in cargo planes to build the house and a hangar up there. Because there's no other way. Unless it was one heck of a donkey train. There's my lake and there's my runway, so we'll come in at a modified base here, across the width of the valley, and we'll be good to go. So altitude's looking fine right now. We're a little bit higher than 5,000 feet. Which is just fine. Right. Fuel pumps are going to be going on again. Don't need to mess with my cowls. They are looking sturdy as good. Okay, let's start to roll in here for final. A little bit of rudder. Got the runway in sight. Let's pull that speed back. There we are. Higher up than I remember. We're about 6,000 feet. Maybe 5. I think it's about 5. Yeah, we're a little bit higher up than it. It's deceptively, it looks deceptively higher than it is up here. Like it feels like I'm higher up. Gear coming down. We turned a little too lazily there, so I'm having to kind of counter that. So throttle's back, props in full fine, keep my mixture where it's at. I'm losing some altitude here, I'm going to put some flaps down. We're going to want for landing. Keep my power up here to keep myself altitude, because this is the thing, you've got a big tabletop landing here. The runway kind of appears much lower than it is, and you end up dropping more than you want to, and you end up flying into the terrain in front of it, which isn't what we want. And we're losing a lot of speed here. But the terrain is kind of rising up to the threshold, so it's very optically confusing to a pilot. As you can see the landscape here just kind of rising up as we meet the threshold. And then I have trees to contend with just in front of the threshold, so it makes things a little bit more challenging, that's for sure. Here we are. Keep the nose steady. Little adjustments. This is where the plane feels so heavy. And we come over the trees. Perfect touchdown. Let's pull those flaps in. And out we roll through the flowers. God, what a gorgeous little strip. The flowers and the trees. Long grass. Not even braking yet. A little bit of braking. And there's my house. Oh yeah, bud. There we go. There's the hangar. We'll park out in front of the house. Now we're home. Let the dog out to go for a run. It's not peeing in the cockpit. That would be great. There we go. And for those of you that have not seen Angel's Lookout, we'll roll the camera upright because that's important. You'll notice we have a hangar with a little pathway down here to the lake. Probably go swimming there in the summer when it's like not freezing. Old trailer. Got a well. Wells are important. Little shed. Got a house. I don't know why I've got a Mercedes up here. That seems excessive. And a horse trailer. Where am I going to take those? There are no roads here. And where we're going, we won't need any roads. But this house is baller. Look at this. I mean, there's materials up here to build this, but would I really want to have to mine the resources to actually build this house up here? But it is kind of gorgeous. Look at this. Got the lake over there. What a stunning spot. Made for me by Firefly. Wonderful scenery developer. Well, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this little trip. I honestly like this plane more and more. I was okay about it in the review. I thought it was a decent offering, but the more I fly it, the more I think it's actually not a bad aircraft. Has it got, you know, full systems depth or tablets and candy? No, but for the price, it's a steal for what is a very nice aeroplane. And even though I mentioned the texture quality wasn't 4K or higher, I didn't notice this entire flight. It was good. If you haven't bought it, go buy it. It's great. Thanks for watching and listening to me ramble as usual. Bye.